the HR Brief podcast. Today's episode sits at the crossroads of finance, risk, and the future of work. We are diving into a topic that affects companies more than ever: financial crimes risk management, and how AI is reshaping the landscape. Today, my guest is a very good friend of mine, my schoolmate. He's an experienced financial crimes and risk manager with a strong track record in the financial services industry. His expertise spans strategic risk assessments, policy, and procedure enhancement and financial crime adversary. In simple terms, it helps companies stay one step ahead of financial crime. So welcome, Bode Akinbiyi. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, Bimbo. Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. Great. So how did you enter into financial risk management?
How did I get into the field?
Yes.
I started this. So what I would say is the base of financial crimes is KYC, which is know your customer. So from when I started working in banking, which was a few years ago now, in 2007 or whatever, that's my first entry into understanding KYC. But that was real basic KYC. And then I moved into stockbroking. And I would say that's probably the first time I started to understand how to manage financial crimes risk. I got into the reporting side of things, where for every transaction that we executed for a client above, I think it was #1 million, we had to report it to the EFCC. So it was at that point I started to understand, okay, right, we need to do this to manage financial crimes. And then when I got into the UK, I, started doing some remediation work for banks, and I understood again, what it meant to understand KYC. And I now realized that KYC goes beyond just collecting, what we used to do back then in Nigeria, the passports and everything. Is actually understanding the client's nature of business and how it impacts the product that we're offering the clients. And I think long and short of it is that was my first entry in Nigeria. Then I went into remediation work with Santander and Lloyds, eventually landing in Wells Fargo, where we did some understanding the client's portfolio, KYC, and all of these kind of things. And then from then, the rest they say is history. You now understand that managing financial crimes is not just collecting customer data, it's actually understanding the client's business, the products you're offering them, the risk they present to the bank, and how we can ensure that we have the right controls within the firm. So that was my entry point many moons ago.
Oh, that's fantastic. So I just piggybacking on what you said within the KYC, because I know that I always felt that, okay, KYC, I didn't even know we had KYC forms in the back, because usually the only time I saw KYC forms, or maybe if you're going to like all these mobile companies that tell you to fill those forms, and those forms,
Yes.
I found them very, I don't know, maybe redundant, because you say, okay, you want to know us, but you actually just want information, but you don't even make use of the information at the end of the day.
Correct.
And maybe when I have a problem again, next time I come back, I tell me to fill another KYC form again. So it's always, so I don't know, like you said, the form here is from the one you have in UK, but actually go in details of to actually want to know the customers and the clients. So I think it's something we can improve in terms of like our own banking system, because I feel like for us, the banking system still is good, but I think we still have some miles to go. Even when I was there, I saw like the difference, when I was in school and trying to get my account sorted. I think I spent maybe 15 minutes in the bank, and I had to ask the teller again, am I done? As in actually, because I think I was feeling like, no, I can't be done. Like, no, it usually takes this long when I'm in Nigeria. Not that I'm saying that, just that we have ways where we can improve, because I wasn't used to that short amount of time to go to school, come back, do my banking stuff, then go back again to school and continue with the situation. It was
Absolutely.
I think that was the only culture shock I experienced. Not like I was
Absolutely.
that was really it. Okay, that's good. So from what you're saying today, what kinds of financial crimes are most common, and where do companies usually get it wrong when trying to manage this risk?
I think for me, when I think about financial crime, probably I would go with 4 of them. I would say money laundering, tax evasion, I would say fraud, and bribery and corruption. And if you if I just sort of delve into that a little bit more. Firstly, when you think about money laundering, it's basically people taking dirty money and trying to make it clean. I think is probably one of the most prevalent crime in our society today. I've got some stats for you. I just wanted to just quickly read those out, if that's okay. I was reading that today the estimated global scale of money laundering is between 800 billion to 200 trillion, right? Wow. Which is about 2 to 5% of global GDP. Wow. Tax evasion is about 480 billion. Sex trafficking is about 173 billion generated from these financial crimes.
Wow.
So you can imagine, I just think the scale of it in the world is huge, is massive. And I always say that for me, the most basic one is money laundering, people getting dirty money and then putting it through the system to make it clean. If you think about drug trafficking, I've got the stat for drug trafficking here. It says it generates between 320 billion to 652 billion, right? Drug trafficking. Now think about the fact that when people sell illicit drugs, they get the cash, they have to find a way to bring it through the system so that they can use it. Because if you take a wad of cash to the bank, they're going to look at you, where did you get that kind of money from?
Exactly.
So these criminals have to try and find a way to integrate into the system and eventually get it out. So money laundering is one of them. The other one that I think about that's very prevalent is tax evasion. And this one is quite interesting because in our society and within the industry, there's a difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance.
Yes.
Tax evasion is where you completely, you don't want to pay the tax. But avoidance, which I think is a loophole, is when people incorporate businesses in places where there's lower tax, right? So you can be doing your operation in a particular country, generating a revenue there, but your holding company, for example, is in a offshore place where the tax is low. And so for me, I question that, and I know lots of people do question that, but it's a system that's allowed, so, but again, if you think about, I mentioned the stats for tax evasion, that those monies, instead of funneling it back into society, is being sort of evaded. So that's that. And I think it would be remiss of me not to talk about fraud. We're in the digital age, you and I know, where it's romance fraud, where it's identity theft and all that. I think that's very prevalent. We're in a digital age now, and I think that's absolutely common. The other day, somebody called me and they said they were from Amazon, that somebody's trying to use my accounts, to make some transactions, and they were asking me to divulge some information. But obviously, I work within the bank. This is my job, right? So I was able to, straight away I clocked and I realized that this is fraudulent. And I said to them, I will phone you back. And the guy was getting agitated. And I knew as I just cut up the phone. So we see those kind of things coming on. And obviously the final one that I think is quite prevalent is bribery and corruption. If I were to ask you today that, what is the most prevalent crime in Nigeria or issue in Nigeria? We probably will mention corruption, right?
Yes.
So think about, all the multiple, millions or billions of naira that could have been channeled into other things. We find that. So I think from those are the four financial crimes. I mean, there's so many, but if I, off the top of my head, I would say those four are some of the most prevalent that I think we see in society today.
It's actually true. I mean, it's as much as it's corruption back home, I think it's even more like you said, the fraud and people trying to, especially with our phones and now with AI, like people are they're coming up with so many schemes, especially with WhatsApp. I think WhatsApp and your messages are like main targets, and like with the bank, and because I think now with the BVN and even with that, like people are so personally, I have my app on my phone, but I'm always very, very careful not to have like additions. And very people you can pay with your phone. I know they do that in the UK, where you can easily pay with your phone, but I personally don't put up my phone because I feel like once you misplace your phone, that's like an easy way for them to get you all your details because you've already attached
into your phone. Yes,
so it's so crazy. Like they almost have like crazy, and you wonder how do they get all these ideas from, and maybe they're watching or I don't. It's very scary. So that's why I don't even read. When people send messages on WhatsApp or so, I don't recognize the number. I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not reading this message. I'm not doing anything. I'm not reading any emails. I don't know. I just go straight to the, because once you click, you don't know what you're going to find. Or
you don't know what you're
so
allowing people.
So,
I just last week, a friend of ours, her WhatsApp got hacked, and this individual hacked into her phone and just sent messages to loads of people asking them for money. And as you can imagine, a number of people did send this individual money. Yes. So that's why I said fraud obviously is one of them as well. And it's more prevalent because of we live in a digital age, and like you said, the rise of AI, which we'll come into later. But that's it's quite prevalent in society today. It's
scary. I think we just have to be careful and just be on our toes. Like, okay, whatever we're screaming or we're watching or we're clicking, we just have to be careful. So which, like you said, leads to the question of AI, which leads to my next question. So AI is like the main thing right now, and it's shaping our world, the way we work, everything. So is it like, I mean, in terms of like risk, do you say creating risk, or how is AI being used in financial crimes, and I mean today, and how can companies strike the right balance in terms of using AI and systems and using the human judgments as well?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is two things actually. Number one is we have to embrace it. Okay. I can speak from my own experience where I would say that I only started to embrace AI maybe towards maybe last year. Yeah, because I was very skeptical about it. I was not comfortable. My feeling was always, oh, AI is just taking our brains away. It's not allowing us to think. But actually, when used in the proper way, it can be a very powerful tool. And within the financial services industry, I know that lots of banks are committing huge budgets to financial to AI because they recognize that it's the game changer. It's where the world is going. So as a society, as a people, we cannot run away from it. We have to embrace it. So within the financial services industry, I think that, AI is being used to automate processes, to enhance decision making, even simple things like minute writing. You get into a call with with a team and you have a very big meeting. AI, co-pilot, and so on, they can help you sort of streamline one of the key action points, and people can take that away. We're talking about, managing financial crimes risk. There's something within the banking industry that we call transaction monitoring, basically monitoring the transaction of clients. You monitor patterns. Okay, if you see this kind of, skew, maybe so much money is being paid into the account or small amount of money over a period of time, AI can help us detect those patterns and raise some flags. So there are a number of things that AI does, and as I said, it's just something we've got to embrace. Sure. We can't run away from it. And the other point to make is we have to be very, very clear that AI should not replace human judgments. Sure. AI should augment what we do, not replace. So I always say augment, not replace. I give you an example. I worked on a risk assessment recently in the office, and I'd written the assessment and all of that. Now that assessment was going to be used by different people in the department, in different departments within the office, and this particular department took my assessment, and I'm almost certain that they had run this through AI, right? And by the time they come up with a summary of the assessment, it had taken away the context. So it was like a 13 or 20-page document, right? They are taking, by the time it's run through AI, they are taking away the context and redefined everything I said in a bit to summarize it, it had taken away the context. That's the point I'm trying to make. And so you have to think about the human side of things to say, right, is this still making sense? Even though we're going to rely on AI, it's still making sense. So that cannot be, be taken away. As I said, augment, not replace. So that's just my thoughts. Yeah.
So people, you've heard it. AI should not replace, but augment. So just to that, because I think even for me, I was, when AI came, I was like, I'm never going to touch this. I mean, this is yeah. I remember someone telling me, I mean, this is great. I remember when I first had my first episode, and the Uber person I took, and was telling me how he talks to AI, that AI is his girlfriend. And for me, I think there's a he even named it something, and I was like, okay, there's the crazy side, and also I think he is going towards the crazy, because I don't know how you can talk to AI. I know people say that they can talk and they can, it listens, but AI cannot empathize with you in a certain way. I mean, I know. No. It's very, I mean, there's a thin line, so I don't know if people want to cross that line. Me, I feel like the way I use AI is that, okay, I have an idea, and I put my idea into it. I tell you what I want it to do in terms of maybe like my ideas, and I can pick what I want. But just like you said, when you did your summary, and they use that summary they put the summary into AI and remove the good parts, I mean, of your judgment, of your human judgment, and just now bland. So for me, we have to find, like you said, I mean, minutes writing wasn't one of my strongest when I was working. So if I had AI, then I mean, I could write the summary of the minutes, and it could help me to maybe in terms of layouts, or maybe certain words like this. But absolutely, certain, I'm like, no, I'm going to use the same word but in a different context or a different pattern. I wouldn't replace it with what AI had told me. So that's just. So I think we need to find a balance, and I think companies they don't need to be scared. They just need to embrace it more, but in terms of how to use it ethically. I think ethically, 100%. To find the balance, because whether we like it or not, it's not going anywhere. And it's funny because people think AI just came. AI didn't just come. AI has been there. It's just that we've not had the capacity to use it. Because I was telling my sister the other day that I remember a series I used to watch when I think this was in 2000s, was called Person of Interest. And in that series, it was all about AI.
AI.
It was a guy that created like some form of AI stuff, and the AI was reading it, and it could see different information. And that was in 2000. So we can't act like if it wasn't coming. It's just a matter of, okay, we weren't prepared.
It's just more mainstream now.
Exactly.
Because a lot of the models that AI uses, like you said, they've been around for some time, but it's just more mainstream and more easily accessible, and is now more part of our daily living. So 100%.
So that's fantastic. So just need to embrace it and look forward to a brighter future using AI. So
100%.
Bringing it back to people and business, how do you think leaders and HR teams to do something differently to stay ahead using AI as it continues to change the game with the way we work right now?
So I think I kind of touched on that earlier in the sense that some of the tasks that we do, AI can start to use that. And I think maybe if I narrate or if I bring it firstly to financial crimes risks, there's something that we say within the bank, which is looking at horizon risks, i.e. what are the risks to come in the future. So I think what leaders can start to do is, and even businesses, not just banks, when you have a sort of business, you can use AI to ask yourself, what are the risks that could come because of the kind of products that I'm offering? And AI could help you define those risks based on the products you're offering, based on the customers that you're serving, the behavioral patterns of those customers, and begin to help you say, these are the kind of risks that could come in the future, and just be prepared for it so you have the right controls. If we bring it down to sort of HR, I know a friend who was telling me that she's using AI to try and enhance the onboarding process. When I've gotten jobs, and you go to the onboarding is probably the most painful aspect of every, trying to get, you're getting your references checked, and you're going through all these things, right? AI could help, automate those processes, send reminder emails, help you, to simplify the process. So that's one other aspect. AI could also, within the HR sector, AI could also help with, hiring. Okay. I know that, when it comes to hiring, what recruiters tend to do is look for keywords. And by doing that, sometimes you can miss out on, good candidates. So what AI could help do is, instead of just focusing on keywords, AI could help you look at the CV and say, right, this person might not have the keyword, but their experience, right, could still be relevant to the role that you're looking for. Now, I understand for recruiters, you don't have the time to go through hundreds of CVs, but you have a proper AI tool, you could use that to streamline the hiring process. Obviously, things like performance management as well, to identify patterns of people who need help, who are your highest performers, and those who need, support. You can also help with things like surveys, right? You issue out a survey. How do you sort of analyze the result of the surveys so that we can start to change behaviors and culture within the firm? So a number of things that AI could help do, and just a few examples.
Oh, fantastic.
And I think if I quickly circle back to the horizon risk, I think that, again, from a bank perspective, obviously, because I work in a bank, from bank, I think horizon risk is so critical, where you literally, I would suggest that, banks starts to have, teams, who are dedicated to, thinking right. Because the thing about AI and digital age that we live now is criminals are not sitting still. They are constantly evolving in the way they're thinking. And so as a company, as an institution, you've got to be asking yourselves, I need to work at the same pace as these criminals are. So apart from your day-to-day banking services or products and services that you're providing, you need to also be thinking from a risk perspective, how do we set up a group of people who are literally focused on managing these types of risks? So those are my initial thoughts.
Oh, great. So I think for AI in HR teams, they can really do something, like you said, the hiring process, because sometimes the hiring process can be very, very rigorous. I mean, I think in a day, if an HR person probably get more than 100 CVs, and having to scroll through 100 CVs can be very tasking, because especially depending on what you're looking for, you have to, I mean, it's a lot of work. So AI can, people, like you said, it's more or less telling telling AI what you want it to do. It's not like just feeding it information. You have to be specific about the information you want to.
Exactly.
That's the most
Exactly.
people just feel like, okay, I'll just write something on AI. Yeah, you can write something on AI or say, okay, give me an idea of something. It's supposed to give you an idea of story, maybe of a story or something. It's not supposed to give you a generic idea, but
Yeah.
not what you want. So if you can't just
Yeah.
copy and paste, I think that's where the boundary is. You can't just copy and paste certain things. You have to streamline it to what you want. So I think like
Absolutely.
it's here to stay. We have to embrace it, accommodate it, and use it.
Yeah, and I think that the strength of, like someone was saying to me, the strength of AI is in the prompting.
Yes,
What do you prompt? So if it's almost like we say garbage in, garbage out. If you don't, if you give it a very basic prompt, it will give you a very basic response.
exactly.
And just to also mention that as much as we get concerned that, oh, AI is taking our jobs, I actually think we can look at it the other way and say, right, AI could also create jobs. For example, some people will be very good at creating prompts. That could be a job. Some people could help us understand, how to better use AI. So
Exactly.
as much as it brings the risks and the concerns about losing jobs, I think it also creates opportunities for people to, use that in a very effective way.
Fantastic. True. I agree. So looking ahead, what do you think or what do you believe AI will play or the role AI will play in the next 5 to 10 years? I remember we can limit to 5 or 7 years. I don't know. Well, within that limit, 5 to 10 years.
I think that if I had a global, how do you call that thing?
A
Crystal
global
ball, I
ball
can
or
tell
what
you,
is it?
yeah, of what will happen in the future. What I would say though is when we watch those, you're referencing a series I watch, but when you watch movies and you see, the rise of robots, what's it called? Self-driving cars and all those things, I actually think that we're going to get there. I genuinely think so. We're going to, maybe not within the next 5 years, but I think we will get to the point where, robots and those kind of things will be part of our everyday life. I know we see that already in some Scandinavian countries and in some parts of Asia, but I
Yeah.
think we're going to get to the point where AI, robots, and those kind of, it's just going to be normal for us, And as I said earlier, as much as it brings the worry, there's also the opportunity. I think so. So I believe that AI is going to be something that we become part of our everyday life, and we're seeing that already. With things like, for example, I don't know, maybe for your Google, I don't know if you use Google email. I use Google Gmail,
Yes,
for
I do.
example.
I use
Someone
Gmail.
sends me an email, and before I click on reply, it's produced a reply for me already. Say, do you want to use that reply? Oh,
Hmm.
you haven't seen that?
No, I'm
Yeah,
not
so
seeing
I've
that.
got so I've got
Maybe
that.
because
So
I'm not. Maybe because I know I have like Google. I think it's like an AI assistant. Maybe I've not got it yet.
yes, I think I've got the AI assistant, so it will just generate a reply for you. And sometimes I've used it. Sometimes, obviously, I will edit it.
Of
And
course,
if you
yeah.
write your email, then you can say, "Oh, I can help you polish it." So the weird thing is how it already knows the kind of response. In fact,
Exactly.
there's this particular. So I play football on a Monday, and I pay the invoice for the team
Mhm.
every month. And my response to the person who sends the invoice is pretty much the same all the time. So I realized that one day as I got the email, it already prepared the exact
It's
response.
exactly.
And I
Oh
thought,
my God.
wow. So it's gone through my emails. The AI has gone through my
It's
emails,
saying
recognized that
exactly,
it's exactly
exactly,
how I respond,
exactly.
so I think that's going to be more and more prevalent in the way we do our jobs. And I think it can be it is a game changer, whether it's politics, whether it's healthcare system, whether it's education, in
Exactly.
analyzing results, in making sure that, students have access to more tools and all of this kind of thing. So I see it as being part of our lives in our everyday lives. And for the younger generation, they're growing up in a digital age. So
True.
we just have to recognize that when we grew up and the generation they're growing up is very different. And so the way they think and the way they apply themselves is going to be slightly different to the way we were brought up. And it's something that, mentors, parents, and leaders need to be aware of, that this generation is slightly very different to us
Very
simply
different, yeah.
because they're growing up in this age where AI dominates and, everything they do. Yeah.
It's funny because you said this. I was watching something on TV. I think it was is a show I was watching on my
Yeah.
YouTube. So they were talking about like I think it was 3 universities in America, and someone was making a comment. Some people were making commencement speeches, and they talk about
Mm.
AI, and the students were booing because apparently
Yes, I read
AI.
that news. I read that
So
news.
I think AI was supposed to read their names, and I was like, if the younger generation, the people that are booing now, so is it that they have a problem with it, or they just have a problem, like it's like amazing their voice that they don't have a voice anymore. And it's like, yeah, they understand that it's here to stay, but must it be in every single thing? So I think that's the issue they might have. Like, must it be? They know that it's here, but must it be in every single thing or everywhere we go, everything we're doing?
But I don't think we're going to be able to avoid that. I think that's where that's probably the scariest thing, where it's going to dominate every part of our lives. You just go on YouTube, you go on just on TV, you just constantly see AI in everything. So
everything.
like even making of films, making of music videos, it's just
Like,
there.
it's just
AI,
there.
AI. So I think the other point I want to actually make, for corporations, for banks as well, is in terms of embracing it. I think that we can also learn a trick by hiring, by the kind of hires we have. This younger generation, as I said, they're growing up in this era. They're very tech savvy.
Yeah.
I think that firms need to start to leverage that expertise of this younger generation. So in my team, for example, we have a young guy in our team. Any AI thing we want to do, any tech thing, this guy is just, I think I'm tech savvy, right? I would say that I'm tech savvy, but this guy is just on another level. He
I
finished
can
uni maybe
imagine.
2 or 3 years ago. But the way they think, the way, so I think firms need to embrace that, and get them as part of your organization, because they know so many things. They have these hacks and all these things, And as I said, it's going to be 2-3 steps ahead of the criminals. And these young boys, I'm not saying young boys, I'm not saying they're criminals, but they are so tech savvy. They think so quickly, and use these tech devices so much effectively than some of us do. So I think that's something that should be considered whilst hiring as well.
Fantastic. Oh, this has been fun. So you're all at it. As much as we have issues in the financial crimes industry, I mean, with AI reshaping everything in our world, we also have to embrace the fact that AI is all not so, it's not so gloom and bad. I mean, it can be used for good as well. We have to find a way to embrace it and send the right prompts to reflect what we actually want in terms of using AI. So before we go, I have a segment where I call the HR hot seat. It's a fun segment. So just ask a few questions and you can just say yes or no. So one word, AI in financial crime, overhyped or underrated?
I think I'll go underrated.
Underrated.
I'll go underrated. The reason why I'll go underrated is because I think that there's so much we can still do with it. That's what I mean. So I'm not saying that firms are not aware. I think everyone, but there's still so much we can tap into it. I know that firms are now starting to build their own AI tools, and I think that's where to go. So there's a lot that we can still do. Some firms are quite skeptical because of some of the concerns we've raised, or they're going to lose our jobs and this. So I think I'll go underrated on that one.
Fantastic. AI or human instinct? If you had to trust one to flag a suspicious transaction, which are you picking? Is it AI or your human instinct? Are you going to focus on the AI judgment or your human judgments?
Or my human judgment. I'll go human judgment.
Okay, but I mean, if you think about it, like,
so I'm speaking for myself now, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's true, but I feel like sometimes we get tempted, like, be like, yes, I'm thinking this way, but let me just ask here, let me just ask ChatGPT or something, whichever one you're using, like, what would you do? So it's almost like you want to say, okay, like you wanted to reflect your own answer, like, okay, yes, I'm good.
Absolutely. You made it either or, right? So the sweet spot
I mean,
my
that's
judgment
true.
in
That's true.
addition.
But it's good to, I mean, it's not like it's bad that if you say, okay, you have a suspicious transaction and you say, okay, this is my judgment. I just want to just cross check.
And
I mean,
then
don't
you
feel
feed it
bad.
through exactly.
Don't
And
feel
then you
like,
feed
I
it
mean,
through
most people
AI.
feel bad for, I think people think that, oh yeah, it's just like it's a cheat mode. No, but I think
No.
they also use that as a way that, okay, just to reassure yourself that, okay, maybe you're on the right path or you're not even thinking. Because what I found is sometimes I'm writing a story, because I'm writing a story and I'm not even thinking this in this wavelength. And when I put it in ChatGPT, it gives me another entire dynamic. I'm like, oh, this is actually interesting. So you can actually impute that same dynamic in your story and even make it better. So
and I'll go back to what I said about myself. Two years ago, I was extremely skeptical about AI, but the way I started to convince myself is that I look at AI as a more advanced Google tool. Just helps you do things, but I'm not totally reliant on it. But it's sort of, like I said, augment, not replace my thinking, right, the way I do things. So
that's good. Okay, so would you rather have a perfect system with no human oversight or an imperfect system with great people behind it?
Say that again. Would I rather have
A perfect system with no human oversight or an imperfect system with great people behind it?
I think I'll go for an imperfect system with great people behind it.
It's funny, some people might disagree. They're like, no, I don't want any human. Just want to just override everything with AI, and AI is like,
No. You cannot. Let me tell you, and I hope I don't sort of destroy this story, but I was in a training the other day, and they gave me a story, an example of a story where AI was asked to do a set of tasks. And the people who gave AI the task, they knew that the task, AI could not achieve that task, right? But somehow AI then started to find ways to cheat, to perform the task. And so I'm sort of paraphrasing the whole story now, but that was the main takeaway. The main takeaway was that AI could find ways to cheat. And if we're not very careful, we'll just get, completely thrown by the way AI is sort of producing results. So I think that, as much as we rely on AI, that human instinct to be able to say, okay, right, to have that real conversation, to check and challenge each other, I think I'll always take that over AI any day.
I mean, you just go back to one of the things you said before I wrapped up, like when you're saying how it picks your responses. I think the reason why people are skeptical is because I think the AI thing and it picking up your responses and even tailoring your responses to because they have studied how you respond is goes back to one move. I can't remember it is, and the AI or the robot had taken time to study human interactions. They started our behavior against us. So I think
yes,
okay, if AI continues to, because it depends on what you constantly ask or you prompt it to about yourself. Don't put your personal stuff online because it keeps feeding, you keep feeding, and where is the information going to? We don't know where the information is, but it's being stored, and it's more or less studying the information and it's trying to understand you. And so I mean that's the only scary part I feel like because like most times I don't feed it any information. If I'm going to do something, I always use like a fake name or fake something, and that's I don't feed my own information. So
and I think
scary part.
Sure. The next level to that, and I probably haven't mentioned this before. You kind of touched on it earlier, is the ethics side of things. So if we go back to the hiring, for example, if we don't feed AI, if you don't prompt it correctly or don't program it correctly, it could have certain biases against certain types of names, certain types of careers, and so the ethics side of things is how do we ensure that we guard against AI bias, and so for me, the governance and ethics, again, I think people who create AI should be subjected to transparency. What is the model behind it? What are you trying to achieve with each of these, AI tools? I think regulation, governance, and the ethics side of it is something that needs to move at the same pace at which we're seeing all of these AIs popping up. Because I know there's just not just ChatGPT and Copilot. I know there's so many, there's Claude, there's so many. So the speed at which they're propping up, I think the regulation of the ethics and the control side of it needs to match that, or else we will get to this place where it would be out of control and eventually they could turn against. I know we're laughing about this, but we've seen people commit suicide because AI told them to do that. Right. So we need to really guard against that really, really well.
Fantastic. So we've all heard it here first. AI, as much as I mean the world is evolving with AI, there's still so many things that can be done. I mean, with AI, we just need to be careful with whatever we're prompting to.
Absolutely.
Of information we're putting in there, and in terms of financial, we need to be careful with the financial risk we're facing in our world today. Especially with all our phones, we need to be careful in terms of what we're clicking. I mean, we always read the messages or be sure that it's from someone you know. Any messages, please do not read. It can be very risky to yourself. So let's just be careful. AI is here to stay, and it can be used for good. So thank you so much, Bode. It's been wonderful. It's been interesting. It's been an insightful conversation because I mean, like I said, financial stuff is not my area of, it's not something I enjoy. So it's always good when I have someone that can break it down to explain to us in layman terms. So it's been good. So before you leave, what's on your reading list currently for our viewers? In terms of like what are you reading right now? Just encourage us.
My book.
Your book. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. You can tell me about it. It's fine. It's great.
Obviously, I wrote a book like you're aware of, life lessons at 40. So that's one thing. I think I'm more sort of a listener kind of person. I'm listening to there's a particular podcast on Diary of a CEO that I'm listening to that's quite
Okay.
insightful.
Okay.
So I do a lot of listening to that.
Is that Diary? Is that the British guy? What's his name now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay, that's good. So yeah, you have it. It's fantastic. So to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this episode, do not forget to subscribe and leave your review on my YouTube page at the HRB Podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a fabulous day. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Bode. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.